The Modern Jeeper Show, the show about Jeeps, Jeeping, and Jeepers.
Well, hey, Modern Jeepers, is another episode of the Modern Jeeper Show with me, Matson from MetalCloak, and Mr. Modern Jeeper, Corey Osborne, is not here, and Rockstar Jeep girl Jessy is not here. I don't know what this year is about, man, but they just seem to be so busy that it's easier for them to dive out and not be a part of the show instead of trying to do something like, oh, I don't know, be in an Arby's parking lot. And if you're a listener of our early shows, you'll understand the reference of an Arby's parking lot. But either way, that's okay because I have a guest. It gives me a chance to bring out a guest, and that is John Larson. Now, John Larson is the chairman of the Cantina 2023. And if you know about Cantina, then you're ahead of the game because Cantina is one of my favorite events. We just had an event here at MetalCloak as a Cantina pre-party, which was a huge success. And then Cantina for the Con is coming up July 1st. You can check it out at Rubicon Trail Foundation. Was it .org, John?
Yeah.
.org, yeah. Or RubiconTrail.org, actually, is the easiest one to go to. So what is Cantina? Cantina is a fundraiser for the Rubicon Trail. And our guest is John Larson, who, like I said, he's the chairman of that. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for making this. Thanks for making the schedule for it. Because guys, listen, most of these people are very busy. They don't get to stand in their office like I do and go, I'm working as I'm doing a podcast. And John rearranged his schedule so that he could be on the show today.
Yeah, this is technically my lunch break. If anyone's that way I'm covered.
Yeah, it's a 10 a.m. 9:30 to 10 a.m. Lunch break. I like it. That's awesome. So let's start with, before we get into Cantina, let's start about you, John. Like, you're a Jeeper.
Yeah.
When did it all start for you?
Oh man, we can go way back if we want. I mean,
yeah,
let's
go way back.
I started camping and deer hunting when I was 4 with my dad, and then he had an old Blazer. Fast forward to the 90s, I buy my first Jeep Cherokee as like my first car, kids in high school, and got super into wanting to be able to build that thing to go on some of these cool camping trips. And, fast forward through the college years where I literally had like no money to build a rig. And I was on Pirate all the time. I was on Naxtra all the time. And I'm like reading the forums, and you're like, oh my God, I need to know how to change an axle shaft. I need a 4-to-8.8 rear. I need chromoly front shafts. I need to re-gear. I need, like, what are lockers? I need lockers. And so I spent all these years researching. And then I think at one point in college, I was able to like buy some built axles for my Cherokee. And I think by that point, I had blown the motor in my first one, replaced it. It never ran right ever again. And I was on like another Cherokee, put some decent axles in that, and started getting into like some of the easy Jeep trails. My like dad and his friends had been running Slick Rock since the 70s, and they would always tell me stories about Slick Rock, and I didn't know anything about Jeep trails or wheeling. And so I was like, oh man, I got to take my rig to Slick Rock. And I remember the first time taking it out there, it was like crazy because, at that point I'd been camping all my life, running like forest roads. You put your rig in 4 low and you thought that was cool to maybe climb, a steep forest road. Like I didn't know what like rock crawling was.
Right.
And
yeah, my first Blazer, I had a K2 Blazer, and it was and it had a big 4-wheel drive in it, right? And I was like, this is awesome. I did not know why anybody would want 4 low. What's the purpose of going slow? Like, to me, it was 4 high, running as fast as I could in the back fire roads. Like that was like the idea of 4 low was strange to me.
Yeah. And it was funny because I look back now and it's like my whole life for the past 20 something years has just been building rigs and wheeling, and everything I do is based around like, all my weekends I start planning out early in the year for all the big runs we're going to do and all the big events. And I still wheel a Cherokee today. I also have a newer Wrangler for like a daily driver. But yeah, those early years were interesting. I didn't know, like I was literally concerned that I was going to break an axle the first time I went out, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was probably like 19 years old, and I literally would go to Pick and Pull and take axles apart to learn how to take an axle apart because I had no idea how to pull an axle or to pull a differential. And that kind of got me started. And then there was that period of like cash for clunkers where you could go on Craigslist and buy you could buy like built rigs for nothing during that time on Craigslist, and I was buying a lot of them. And I would take them apart and hook up my buddies with parts or put them partially back together. And anyways, that got me really comfortable just like knowing a Cherokee front to back. I've probably torn apart over 100 Cherokees, like either on the Rubicon or on Fordyce or out in Reno or out in Nevada. But I feel really comfortable around Cherokees, and that's why I prefer to wheel them. And that's kind of why I've been on, I've been on NAXJA I've been on the Sierra chapter board for like 12 to 14 years. And I've been big on Cherokee stuff for the last like 20 years because that's what I've mostly wheeled. I've owned a bunch of Scouts though, and I actually love International Harvesters, and I've owned a couple Scouts.
I love Scouts.
I have an 83 Wagoneer that I restored that's sitting in one of my garages here on the property, and I love that. But it's been a constant, like every time I drive it, something breaks.
So I got to ask you. Do you have an opinion on this new Volkswagen Scout all electric rig that's supposed to be coming out?
Oh my God. I was so pumped because I thought they were fake rumors. And when they came out, I was so bummed that it was all electric. I think a hybrid, like almost like some sort of
like
hybrid,
a 4xe.
Yeah, like the Jeep 4xe is the best selling electric like SUV or something last year. And I wanted a 4xe so bad when I first heard the rumors because I thought, well, for a daily driver status, if you can get 30 miles, you can go one way to work if you work within 30 miles. It sounds like a great idea to have a Wrangler Rubicon as a daily and still get decent mileage. And then I heard about the Scouts, and I'm like, okay, it'd be awesome if they did do something because, yeah, I had a 68 800A and a 79 Scout too. Both of them were semi-built 35s, hydro assist lockers, welded front, some weird stuff like that. But yeah, I haven't driven an all-electric car yet. My wife has like a plug-in Prius. Like it still runs on gas and electric. That's her daily driver that replaced her Grand Cherokee. So I'm not like, I don't like
sacrilege, man. A Grand Cherokee got replaced by a Prius.
Dude, don't
I praise the Lord. So me, whatever.
we owned about 5 WJs, and they were all like nightmares, like constant work. And I finally just gave up one day. I was like, I can't be working on your daily driver every day after work just so you can get to work the next day. And we just needed something that was like, I want a car that I don't have to touch that gets crazy mileage. But yeah, the Scouts, I'm excited to see them. But yeah, when I heard they got bought by like the parent company of VW and now Volkswagen's going to be making them and they're all electric, it just seems like for what I would picture to be the old Scouts, like some cool hardcore off-road rigs, like the old Scouts were like bare bones, like farm type vehicles. I mean, very similar to like an old CJ where there's nothing really special about it. And you kind of didn't mind if you beat it up a little bit. So I don't know. I can't imagine. I mean, I've seen stuff about some off-road manufacturer, some companies, some car companies trying to bring all electric vehicles to the Rubicon and getting stuck at Gatekeeper for hours and then turning around trying to get their all electric vehicles through Rubicon. So I know that in the short run, I would probably still rather have a straight axle rig, gas powered vehicle. I would be definitely interested down the road in some kind of hybrid thing if it had to be a daily. I'm curious to see like the new Tacomas too, when those come out with that new hybrid, the 2024s that just like released in May. Like that has me intrigued because they threw the 8-speed with the turbo 4-banger in there. And I was hoping the Scouts would do something like that, like a 8 or 10-speed tranny with a hybrid system with like a turbo 4-cylinder and do, I was assuming it'd be straight axle rear, IFS front, and I thought that would be awesome. I'd probably want to buy one just for the nostalgia, especially if they tried to maintain some of the features of the original Scouts, like removable top, kind of like they brought back with the Broncos.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see if they try to go that same direction, right? It was the big disappointment. I loved, again, you look at the older rigs and you had the removable tops, right? And there's a whole generation of those, and all of a sudden they got rid of that. When you started seeing the evolution of the Bronco, the evolution of the Blazer, and they got rid of the removable tops, and that was so much fun. You just pop your top off, you out there with your buddies. But the way that Bronco has done a pretty good job of maintaining some of the cool stuff. Just the other day, and I got to say this, if you're a Bronco owner and you haven't done this, you really, really are lacking in just having that cool style. But you take the plastic flares off, guys.
Yeah.
Take a Bronco, do the fender delete, take the plastic flares off. MetalCloak's probably going to come out with some sort of fender delete here, but take the plastic flares off it looks like a cool Bronco. I mean, you do that, a two-door with no flares and big old tires sticking out. I'm like, man, that was high school. That was high school. That was my high school buddies, right? Of course, back then I think they had like 33s and they were big tires. Like, oh my God, you got 33s. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they maintain that. I mean, some of the concept drawings we've seen have been pretty bad, but if they maintain that, they look more like Rivians than they do like an old Scout.
Yeah,
But if they
that's what I was
main
worried about.
yeah, if they maintain that idea, then it'll be cool because it'll be great. I mean, Scouts were just this cool old simple rig. A buddy of mine in high school had one, and I remember driving to a party, and all of a sudden everything shut down on it. We had to go find what fuse went out and
Yeah.
place that fuse, and it started going again. You know, it was a cool fun rig.
Yeah, they're awesome. I'm curious to see how it turns out. You know what? Maybe my mind will change when I start seeing Rivians and electric Scouts go through like Rubicon and make it all the way without like heavy amount of rock stacking and like then.
Well, or without breaking. We had we were out at Hell's Revenge,
Yeah,
and we are out at Hell's Revenge doing a trip at Modern Jeeper Adventure Memorial Weekend. Guys who've listened to the podcast already talked about this, but there was a Rivian truck all the way at Hell's Gate. Supposedly he had gone up Hell's Gate, but I don't think that actually happened because in order to go up Hell's Gate, you actually have to go down into Hell's Gate, and it's
yeah,
harder to go down into that drop off than it is to come up.
yeah.
Let's be frank. But his front A arm was broken. So there was a tow truck guy there who was all welding it up and trying to use some rebar and other stuff
Oh,
to weld it in straight. But he was just sitting there totally broke. So either he's an idiot or it was I'm going to do one of these things for YouTube and try to capture
yeah.
look what we tried to do. And I don't know what it was, but yeah, they're not ready for that. They're not ready for that game yet.
Yeah, and that's one of my commentaries. I started. I'm very interested in the new Broncos, not as like a hardcore wheeler, but I see them as more of that. What I used to do when I was younger was more of like backroads camping, but you got lockers front and rear if you get into some tight spots where you might need lockers. But the one thing I've noticed is now that I've joined a lot of these Bronco groups just to see what they're about, and my younger brother bought one. It's his first real off road vehicle. My other brothers aren't really into wheeling like I am. And I do see a lot of broken tie rod ends and a lot of broken CV shafts on those. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking like easy trails that I would probably bring a stock XJ through and not even think twice. And they're
Right.
breaking like CV shafts and tie rod ends. And so it kind of has me thinking like there are going to be limitations. Some of my friends do own Broncos, the 6th gens, where they've upgraded the tie rod ends. And
Sure.
it seems like that's one of the first things you have to do. Along with, I think there's like the Bronc Buster rack and pinion upgrade. There's stuff like that you can do
Yeah.
to upgrade the rack and pinion. But as I think I'll really turn a corner too with the Broncos if I start seeing really legitimate straight axle swaps on those, because I think that's coming in the near future. But I don't know. We'll see
Somebody's going to do it. There's been two that we've seen on the CTI trailer. I think a couple of them were out at EJS this year. Nice builds with axle swaps, but it's an expensive swap right now, and you pretty much have to start with a base model because you lose all of the advantages, right? All the electronic and advantages and stuff you have, right?
Yeah.
So you start with the base model, and you do that. That's kind of cool, but what there's so much upgrades that need to happen. And if Ford's smart, they will evolve it. They're learning. Hopefully they're learning about what's breaking. And we have a tie rod end upgrade coming out. But if you replace the tie rod and you don't also subsequently upgrade your steering kit, then what happens? The next weak link is the steering, and then the next weak link and the next weak link, right? And I also hear that it's kind of one of these sad things like, okay, don't lift your Bronco up too high
Yeah.
because then you will break your drive train components. They'll just start going, right? So
yeah, CV axle angles, operating angles are way too steep, even at ride
Yep.
height. When they start lifting them like 5 or 6 inches, it's just, I mean, I've seen the pictures on that ride height. You see those CVs, they look like this. And I'm like, you're at like max almost, man. Like that. No wonder you're popping them. I think I would leave it bone stock if I got one and use it as like a daily and like go into like Bowman Lake type of stuff, like easy stuff. But okay, you might need to put the rear locker on or something, or maybe front and rear if there's snow on I don't know if I would turn into a hardcore rig, but a lot of guys do. And it's cool to watch on YouTube. Some of these guys who are putting big tires and going nuts in them. But yeah, I like the JL as like a turnkey rig. I will probably always wheel a Cherokee. I might eventually build like an old Scout again. I think down the road, something pre-smog, like either a Wagoneer or a Scout. In the meantime, XJs and are like my main crawler. And then the Rubicon is like, take it to Eagle Lakes near Fordyce, or take it to Bowman, or take it to Signal Peak, Sour Grass, Niagara Rim, like all the trails that are like a 2 to a 5. It's like the Rubicon. I just take that out. Anything that's worth wheeling, it's gonna have some real rock crawling. I take the XJ out.
Nice. And so, what in your current XJ is what? Describe it.
It's a big pile of crap. It's got a 14 bolt in the rear and a Kingpin 60 up front with dual shear high steer with I plated the knuckles, 35 spline chromos, Yukon Super joints, Yukon Super hubs, a Yukon Grizzly locker, 538s. I'm trying to think. PSC steering with the custom ram I had them make for it. PSC box, MetalCloak. Actually, I did swap in your dual rate coils this winter. I bought them, I think, on Black Friday. And so I just put those in to try those out. I haven't even wheeled it yet. I did swap in some. I got like Bilstein, just the generic like 5165s up front, and then the 5125s in the rear. New Rubicon Express leaves in the rear. I did actually come down and buy one of the MetalCloak XJ gas skids, and I will say that thing is cool because I was redoing my rear leaf mounts. I went to take the leaves off to replace the leaves because I bend both of my main leaves about twice a year on my XJ. It's just something to do with like 1 tons. I've limit strapped it. I've bump stopped it. I don't think the Rubicon Express leaves are made to handle like 1 tons with a stroker and an Atlas and like full throttle. Like, I think once you bring all that into the equation and you're at full droop with those leaves, even if I am limit strapped appropriately, I'll sometimes come back from a run and I notice like those leaves are S-ed out again. So I was pulling them off and the rear shackle boxes had literally just ripped apart into pieces. I thought I'd like destroyed all the bushings. So I was like, oh, easy. I'll just swap in new leaves and shackle bushings. And the mounts were like gone. And I think that week Rough Stuff literally came out with a shackle box for the XJ. And I drove down to Rough Stuff like the next day on my lunch break and grabbed the shackle boxes and put those in. So the rig's back and running now, but I was like, man, while I had it apart, I'm pulling the gas tank skid and it's like paper thin and it's been on there for 10 plus 15, 20 years. And I was like, man, I want to get one of those new MetalCloak gas tank skids. So yeah, I called that in, drove down real quick one day, grabbed it. And that thing is like 10 times heavier than the factory skid. I can pull the factory skid off by myself, but that MetalCloak one, I had to call a buddy over and get someone to come over and help me lift it. Cause I couldn't possibly hold it up and put the bolts in. It was like that much beefier. So good job on that. It was cool to see like you guys have started. I've seen some more XJ stuff coming out, which is kind of cool because I feel like for a while, I mean, the XJ market is what it is. The JK and the JL markets and the Bronco 6th gen markets, I think are what everyone's gravitating towards because that's what everyone's buying and building. I mean, most XJs by this point are probably, you know, as more go to the junkyard every year and more get built every year, there's less on the road getting built, but it's cool seeing that support. So I think that's cool. I appreciate you guys doing that.
Well, you know, one of our engineers has an XJ and it's kind of funny. We've always had engineer in our group with an XJ. In fact, our lead engineer had an XJ for a while that he built and he designed a full fender system. He designed a full long arm kit. He designed front and rear bumpers, all for it. Right. Our experience with XJ was interesting because we did have a basic suspension kit early on.
Yep.
We're not a leaf company. We're not going to manufacture leaves. So we were reselling the Old Man Emu leaves.
Yep.
And it was just, the reality was XJ owners weren't really interested in paying MetalCloak prices. Right. No. And it's not that our stuff it's not like we have premium markups. We just have a premium product. And so it wasn't moving enough to maintain inventory, especially when you're having to buy the leaves and resell them. So we discontinued that. We still have all the components. I mean, you can still put a front end together and then buy, you know, we can recommend what leaves to get for the rear. And so we just kind of moved on from there, but we still had the fenders and the fenders would have been competitively priced. We just decided that, yeah, when you're looking at what sort of inventory you're going to put on the shelf and what you're going to maintain inventory on and where you're going to put your production focus, right? Because if they're making XJ body armor, then they're not making something else, right? So it's where's our production focus going to be? We decided not to do it. Now, the gas tank skid is something I green lighted. It was like,
Oh, cool.
it's easy. We have it. It's designed. The engineer had basically made one for himself. He had a couple tweaks to make to it, and it's like gold zinc it and let it go, man. Let's let it go. And there's been no reason not to. And I think those type of things are easy to do because they don't, while we know that they'll move and we know people need skids. Bronco's the same way. Our number one seller for the Bronco is skid plates. I mean, Bronco,
really?
tons of skid plates for, all the little things that we're doing. Bronco needs skids, especially when they're 4-doors. It's funny because we have conversations with guys that are, and I've talked about this on the show before, but we have conversations like 2-door versus 4-door, and the 2-door Bronco, and this is true about any rig, a 2-door wheels differently than a 4-door. That's just, right. So the 4-door guys have to have skids. They have to, because breakover angles, you're going through the Rubicon, you're doing something, you're basically just spending most of your time belly rubbing rocks.
Yep.
And whereas the 2-door does an incredible job of avoiding rocks. So, you have to build it up the way you want to build it. But yeah, those are, the XJ stuff is great. I love the XJs. It's just that we have to decide what we're going to do and what we're not going to do when it comes to those parts.
Well, I respect that opportunity cost of doing something else, and also, I mean, like market share, and XJs are a different breed. I feel like, not all of them, but I say the majority of them. Because I've had manufacturers, like when I reach out for stuff for raffles and events, the XJ crowd is much different than like the JL crowd as far as like, I think if you had to, the XJ crowd's more like save as much money as possible and do it yourself, and sometimes they cut corners, whereas like, like on my JL, I've actually bought a lot of MetalCloak parts. I have like your drop brackets front and rear, your control arms front and rear adjustables, your tie rod, and then I run like a WFO track bar. But I mean, like my JL's all bolt-on, and it's all good quality stuff. Like I'm super pumped on keeping the JL bolt-on. I don't want to do anything myself on that,
Sure.
It's like I want that thing to be clean. I want it to work right out of the box. I don't want to be doing head scratching while I try to figure out how I make something work. I just want it to work. I want to bolt it on and have it work. And I think that's going to be most JLJK Bronco 6th gen owners. And I think that's where the market's going. And, the older I get and the older my friends get, the more we want out of the box, bolt on parts, less fabrication, less custom stuff, more like, hey, I just want to go wheel my stuff. I don't want to spend like every week trying to figure out how to custom fab something because I want to save $100 or whatever.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it is funny. Guys like to do it. I'm not a project guy. I came to understand that I love projects, but I'm a great starter of projects. I'm a great doer of projects. I'm not a great finisher of projects. We're all good at what we're good at, right? Some people are great at finishing things. I'm great at starting things. I'm great at having about wishful ideas, but the reality is time. Listen, I got 5 kids at home now. Time is not my friend. So, it's like, okay, cool. There's that project in the garage. Now, someday when my kids are a little bit older, I expect we'll do projects because it's going to be part of their learning. Like, let's go do something. I think I rebuilt my first carburetor when I was like 8 years old with my dad. And then I rebuilt my first bicycle when I was 9 because they needed some welding done on it. So those are the type of things I want my kids to experience, right? To be able to do those sort of things. But yeah, I'm not a project guy. You won't see me working on stuff in the garage. When something needs to get done, I got a shop. It's called Cloakworks 4x4. It takes care of it for me.
I'm trying to get to that point where I could just not work on stuff as much. It's still every year I say that, and it seems like every year I say that in like January, and my friends will be like, "You're going to work on stuff like every day this year." And then of course I'm like, "No, I'm not going to touch the XJ. I'm not going to touch the Wagoneer. Not going to touch the JL. It's just going to get wheeled." And then it's a snowball, and something's failed, and then I just end up spending way too much time, and I'm like, "Oh my, there goes my evenings and weekends again."
Yeah. Well, dude, I know we talked about this before the show started, but I just love the background you've got going on there. You got this big windows and trees behind you. It looks so peaceful and quaint and relaxing, versus mine. Like this is so this is the office, but guys, understand the house is just like this. I mean, the house is this is me, my life. It's just this busy. But I can just see it sitting there. And you were saying you have that kind of setup like a tiki bar?
Yeah, we love like tiki stuff, Tiki Culture. It's super random because I love wheeling and we love Tiki. So we buy a lot. Like actually behind me outside, you probably can't see, but there's like a 7-foot tall Moai head sitting like outside that we just got recently. Wow. But this whole room is full of like Tikis and cool. We love like the Polynesian art, I guess. Like we'll go out of our way to buy Tiki stuff. It's really hard to find. There used to be a place in SoCal called Oceanic Arts. They closed down recently. There's some really great like Tiki artists in SoCal that one of them passed away in like last year, which was too bad. We had picked up some stuff from him, but yeah, it's another like thing I'm into. And I love Tiki stuff. I like collecting vintage camping coolers too. I used to have like a ton of them and now I probably only have 20 or so, but yeah.
Vintage camping coolers. Like what, like old metal ones or what? Like,
yeah, I'd go like thrift store shopping. Like we used to go thrift store shopping on the weekends looking for vintage camping gear. And I would go to like every thrift store in Sacramento every Saturday and try to find them. And yeah, like 1930s, 1940s, 1950s Coleman stuff, Thermachest. There's so many. I'm trying to remember like Polaron.
It just means that they weigh 10 times as much and they don't hold as ice as long.
They just look cool. Yeah, it's like I actually don't really use them. They're not. There's two old. You can't see them in this picture, but there's like two old Colemans over here. That pink one is like 1940s diamond logo stuff, super cool. And I was buying some used windows on Craigslist, and this dude had that sitting in his barn, and I was like, "What do you want for that old beat up cooler?" Trying to play it cool, and he's like, "I don't know, $5-10." I was like, "I'll give you $20." It's like I'm stoked on that. I'm like, you see that diamond logo on an old Coleman, and you know it's usually pre-60s. And it was super clean. So, I mean, I love stuff like that. The market has become kind of crazy where you go on like Facebook Market or eBay and people want hundreds of dollars for them. I mean, I usually try to pay $4 to $5 to $10 for them at like a thrift store. I've maybe paid $30 at like an antique store before. If they're really clean, really good shape, like, like not messed with, there's not a whole lot of rust or they're not falling apart. But yeah, you'll see them you'll see those diamond logo ones. People want $200 or $300 for them now. It's crazy.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah. It's amazing. Anything is collectible these days. You have all these collectible subcultures of things that people like, and everything that's old is new again. That's just kind of comes back, and that's totally cool, man. I had no idea. That's very cool. Okay. So Jeeps, Tiki, which makes it pretty much a natural transition for you to be the chairman of Cantina for the con. Yeah. Now, what you need to do is Cantina Tiki style. That would be cool.
That would be rad. Do a Tiki theme. That would be cool.
That would be totally cool. So, but Cantina for the con. Now, how many years has Cantina been going? I'm trying to remember. How many years?
2005 was the first year.
Okay.
And this is the 16th official year because there was like 1 year where we couldn't get permits, and then there was like COVID, and then that.
Right. Like, we had that kind of year where it was like, okay, so we're supposed to do it in the Spillway. And when it started, for all of our fans, it started in the Spillway. And what is the Spillway? But it is this big, giant, cut out of granite, canyon, essentially, designed to be able to allow the water from Loon Lake, if it needed to be flushed out if it gets too much down into the valley. So, but the Spillway is pretty cool because you have these giant cut granite walls on either side, and you have lots, foot-sized granite boulders all up and down there that you walk around. But this is where the Cantina was set up. And you sat, you had all your tents and some of the original pictures. And all you need to do is do a search for Cantina for the con. You're going to see the pictures of all the vendors set up within the Spillway. And it was originally done by TDO, which was the club that just, they had this idea, they started putting it together. And that's when we first started coming out. I think our first year at Cantina was probably 2009, when we were just getting started. We had our TJ. Aaron and I drove out in the TJ. I think we camped up on the top of the hill and set up a little booth with a 10x10 and a TJ, and had $5 shirts to sell. And it was just a cool little way to get started. But you had tacos and margaritas. Again, margaritas were not official. Somebody was feeding me margaritas. I'm not sure where they came from. I just know that they were cold and they tasted good. And we had lots of tacos. And it's just been my favorite event since, and it had to evolve over the years. And at some point, because you couldn't get the permit, and that was probably because it got so popular that it was taking so much space and it was cutting off some of the camping and other things that were supposed to be happening Labor Day weekend, that it got moved. And now here we are.
Yeah. So I think there definitely became a permitting problem as it got bigger and bigger and bigger, because I know that one of the issues that started to come down on us was the new permitting process. From what I understand, I came onto the board 3 years ago. This happened before me, but we would have to somehow manage people parking between all those campgrounds all the way along the Loon, all the way to the trailhead. And we'd have to make sure that people, like, how are you going to stop 1,000 random people going to run into the Rubicon and stop them and tell them, you can't park here, you can't put your tow rig here, you can't, you would probably need 1,000 volunteers to stand every 10 feet and make sure no one parks there. And that just got it to a point where, the way I understand it, it was just not feasible. I mean, we can't possibly do that. And so I think that's what drove them to start looking for other locations. And I before I came around, they determined to go to Rob's, and I've never been to Rob's until 2 years ago, and it is freaking cool. I've heard stories of what it used to look like, but I can tell you that what it looks like now, you can tell they put a lot of money into that place, because it looks rad. I mean, I thought it was just a rad place to camp. Like, they built like a stage, a dance floor, outdoor bar area. They've like, put down a bunch of rocks, so when you're driving around, you're not kicking up dust all over everyone that's hanging out. I mean, so it's just awesome. And then you have like the mountains in the background, you got the meadow in the background, the trees. It's like super like peaceful and beautiful out there.
Totally. And he's got a power line road, and he keeps adding property to it. And I've been to it over the years. We used to do Wheelers for the Wounded out there. It was hosted. And that was kind of in its early days of evolution. It was still, at that time, was still called the Crystal Basin Mountain Resort before it went back. So I think it was Rob's Resort originally, became Crystal Basin Mountain Resort, and then it went back to Rob's Resort. Yeah. But it was just a nice camping area. He had the barn there that's still there with the bar inside of it, but it didn't have a lot of the infrastructure. And the cool thing is, it is a place like literally just minutes from the Rubicon Trail. Yeah. Some people come out, and there's a whole culture that they come out, and as soon as the snow clears, they park their fifth wheel or whatever, and they're living there for the summer. Yeah. We thought about parking our RV up there and just having it so it's easy for the kids and I to go up anytime we wanted to, go up, stay up there, and hang out at the RV and do stuff up there in the summer, go play around a wheel, and then leave. So there's a lot of people that do that. And then he started doing more and more infrastructure. He's got the stage, he's got, it looks amazing compared to what it was just a few years ago. And the family has just done a great job of building it up. And this is just it to him. All the work in there and it has been done by him and the family. Like, there is this amazing steel work, welding, other stuff they've done and built. And it's like a hobby for him. This is what he uses to relieve his stress of the business the family owns. It has to do with electronics, some other stuff. The Rob's Resort is it's where he goes to relax. And so all the building he does to it, all the creativity he does on it. And he's a wheeler too. He was one of the early adopters of our Duraflex joints. And there's a great thread out there. We call it just the thread, one of the longest threads out there about MetalCloak. And he was known as CJ. I think it was CJ Craig was his title on JK Owners. And this fully built at the time, total custom JK 2-door that had been like evolved over the years. It was pretty amazing. And just, he's a great guy. Wheeler, he goes out there on the power roads all the time, goes out on the Rubicon. So great place to support, even if you're not doing Cantina for the con. It's a great place to go out and support and do some camping if you're going to go out wheeling.
Yeah, it's an awesome location, and they've helped us out so much. I don't know how we would do Cantina anywhere else at this point without a lot more money and a lot more help, because they're definitely helping us out like crazy. I mean, you guys are too, obviously, as title sponsor. So I mean, we appreciate everything. We've got a lot of amazing, a lot of amazing companies coming out to help us out, help us raise money with the raffle. We're going to be selling merchandise out there too. And I mean, Rob's is such a cool location to have it. And like you were saying, it's not far from the trailhead. It's obviously way further than the Spillway, which is literally the trailhead. Right. And that was one of the really attractive parts about Cantina before, is you could literally drive through Labor Day, go get some tacos, put in some money in the raffle, and then wheel into the trail and come back later that day. Well, I think now with Rob's, yeah, you could go after the event, or you can go the next day. Or you could stop by and check it out on your way to the Rubicon. Because if you're coming up 50, or even Wentworth from the 80 side, from Wentworth, you're just dropping down a little bit down Ice House. Coming up Ice House, you're going to pass it if you're coming up 50. Check it out on your way to the Rubicon, or even if you're not wheeling the Rubicon that weekend and you're like, just want to take the family camping somewhere on. There's so many places.
Well, that was a great thing about it. I remember being out there, and you have guys showing up in a Toyota Corolla, like, just because family wanted to come support it, they would take that drive. And it was always amazing to me because I'm sorry, no matter how many years I've been doing the Rubicon Trail, I am always overwhelmed by the distance. The feeling of the drive from 50 to the trailhead always seems longer than it should be, right? It's just that long drive. But there was families that would come in their Toyota family car just to make and support Cantina. And if you looked at the parking lot, that was basically the whole section of the slab on the hill next to the spillway. There is a huge selection of different types of cars. It's not just all people coming up in the 4x4s. So you had the great people, you had the people stopping in as they're going into the con, right? That flow of Labor Day weekend wheelers, all going into the con, stopping, getting tacos, going in, coming out, whatever, having a great time, as well as people who are just coming as a destination event. So the cool thing about Rob's Resort is because it is more of a destination location now. You can go, you can camp, you can be a part of it, or you simply take it and you turn off. You spend a little bit of time there saying hi to all the vendors, because there's great vendors out there. You enter the raffle, doing all that kind of stuff, getting yourself some tacos, and then hit the road and go up camping, or hit the road and hit the trail. Or maybe you're just going up to go to the lake and do some fishing. Whatever you plan on doing that weekend, July 4th weekend, you can stop and do it. It's a one-day event, which is a little different than before. It used to be 2-day, and I'm sure maybe someday it'll expand outside of that. But it also allows you to just focus and come in there, support it. Now, this is a fundraiser, and so I want to really kind of emphasize that. Like, what does the Rubicon Trail Foundation, for people who don't know, what does Rubicon Trail Foundation use these funds for?
Yeah, so I have a giant list here, so I'm just gonna get kicked off here. So the biggest thing, I think that the most important thing that Rubicon Trail Foundation does is they're the bank for the Friends of the Rubicon. The RTF was actually formed because the Friends of the Rubicon formed back in the early 2000s, and they started getting all these donations, and all this money started flowing in. They're like, wait, we need a bank account. Like, we can't just if I'm Del Albright, I can't just start taking this money and putting it in my personal bank account, right? Like, they had to start the RTF. And so the way I understand it is RTF really is the bank account for Friends of the Rubicon. And on top of that, we also do a lot of other things. So Friends of the Rubicon work projects, I think, are the number one most important thing that we can do as RTF. Number two is our mid-trail staff. That's we have a guy that basically stays on the trail 3 days a week, and he counts rigs. He kind of officially helps people out who are on the trail. You know, he can hit the ham repeater for someone who's coming up from Tennessee and they break a JK steering box somewhere on the slabs, and they're just like sitting there like, hey, what? I am stuck in the water. I just drove 3,000 miles. And like, I've heard stories where Glenn will radio out, hit the repeater, and hit up someone in Placerville, and someone will drive a steering box up, or we might even have one somewhere locally that we can bring to them. And I think the mid-trail staff, on top of just counting those rigs and being there and being a presence and understanding the conditions, kind of reporting back to us so we know what's going on, that's probably the second most important thing. And then also things like, when we can, like bathroom construction, bathroom maintenance. I know RTF used to run the Unimog for years. The county ended up taking that over, and they built an amazing rig, and they have an awesome guy who goes out there and pumps those toilets. So be respectful of those Rubicon bathrooms, because there's a guy out there who works really hard to pump those for the county, and that guy's awesome. That guy,
there's Brian. A lot of them too. There's a lot of them.
There's so many people that put so much time into this trail.
I didn't realize how many bathrooms were on there until we did that our now famous Rubicon map, where we went through and you count it. It's like, in fact, I got one on the floor over here. It's just bathroom after bathroom after bathroom after bathroom after bathroom. And all of that's, guys, because quite frankly, some people are being disrespectful, and we call them the white flowers when you see the toilet paper on the side of the road. Not cool. So you got to use the bathrooms, but that's all so that we can maintain the Rubicon Trail for the long term and for generations to come.
They're basically one of the reasons why the trail's still open today. you know, there was that water board decision back in 2012, and part of it had to do with things like, I mean, it blows my mind that you could drive into the middle of nowhere, like some pretty legitimate rock crawling, and then all of a sudden there's a bathroom. Like, you're just like, where else? I mean, there's no bathrooms on like Slick Rock or Fordyce, or you're not in the middle of like Hell's Revenge and Moab, and there's just like a toilet at the top. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to me, you know, and it's something that blows my mind when you think about it, because I can't picture another trail that I've been on over the years that just has toilets like every so many. I mean, they're perfectly placed. There's one at Ellis. There's one on Walker. There's a bunch of them in Buck. There's one at Arnold's Rock. Springs is private property, but there's tons of them in Springs. I mean, and if you can't make it to a Rubicon bathroom, bring wag bags. That's another big thing that helps keep the white flowers off the trail. That's super important. But yeah, those are the types of things that we want to fund. We want to work. I mean, we really want to work with, like, there's so many entities involved in the Rubicon. So when I joined the RTF, I had no clue. I thought it was just, I remember seeing the Placer County side as you kind of get closer to Springs, and you're like, okay, so it goes through El Dorado County, it goes through Placer County. Okay, it's in the forest. What is in El Dorado Forest? Rubicon goes through El Dorado National Forest, which is in El Dorado County, Placer County, Tahoe National Forest, Tahoe Lakes Basin Management Unit. So you have like multiple Forest Service jurisdictions, multiple counties, the Lake Tahoe Lakes Basin Management. So there's all these entities that kind of have their piece of the Rubicon. So, and most people don't know this, but about 40% of the Rubicon Trail goes through private property, which is, like, to me, one of the craziest statistics I've heard. When they told me that, when I first kind of was even thinking about joining the RTF, it kind of blew my mind, because I was like, oh my God, you're telling me it's like almost half private property, and these landowners just basically let people drive through. And that's another reason. Not only do you not want to go off trail, because that will get the trail closed down when you're on the federal lands, but also be respectful of that private property, because that's basically guys like someone like you or me who maybe worked out a deal and bought some land there who knows how long ago. That's their property. It's like their backyard, basically. And be respectful, not, you know, and on top of national forests, on top of El Dorado County and El Dorado, you know, Tahoe National Forest and Placer County and all those things.
Right. And it's important to remember, one of the reasons why the Rubicon Trail is treated so differently than, say, Fordyce or some other trails out there is because there's a county responsibility to it. It is a county road, right? At a certain point, it becomes county road. It is a county road. And therefore El Dorado County has to have a certain amount of responsibility for it. Placer County has a certain amount of responsibility for it, though people can debate whether or not Placer County did the right thing by letting the National Forest be the management of that section of the trail, which has led to the management, the National Forest wanting to come in and impart fees on anybody using that trail for commercial purposes. But that being said, you have these entities like you had El Dorado County having to manage this as a county road without it really being a finished county road, obviously, because nobody wants to go in there and have them break up all the rocks and make it into a smooth thing where you can take your Prius or your Rivian. But you also want to be able to have it, play with it. And so it really has created a unique trail in the history of off-roading, in that where you have something like the Ellis Creek Bridge, you know, $2 million project to put a bridge over a creek that 90% of the time is maybe 2 feet wide or 3 feet wide. But oh my God, we got to maintain and make sure that there's no oil from the vehicles going into that creek. So little things like that the Rubicon Trail Foundation has been integrally a part of. Because I'll tell you what, guys, when Friends of the Rubicon came about, when Del Albright and his compatriots created the Friends of the Rubicon Trail was going to be closed.
Yes.
There was all kinds of opportunities for people. People were not following a trail. There wasn't really a trail to follow. It wasn't really defined as well. They were going off trail. They were doing all kinds of stuff. Hey, there's a rock over there. Let's see if I can crawl it. There was all kinds of rule breaking happening, and it was going to be closed. It would get shut down, gone forever. The only way you'd make it through was if you were going to break the law or you wanted to hike. The cool thing about Rubicon Springs being what it is that it is a destination that people want to go to. It is one of those few destinations where there's no bypass to get to it. You're either going to walk to it or you're going to ride or drive to it, right? You can't There's not any way to say, well, I want to get to the springs and I don't really want to, I just want to take my car. You just can't do it. You have to have a 4x4. You have to have something, or, a good motorcycle or a good ATV to get back there, or a good set of feet, because you're going to walk back there. And it's so, because it had this destination location, it just made it so much more important for us to make sure that those trails were open. So when Friends of the Rubicon started, it was going to be closed. It's not even a thought. It was so close to being closed. But the Friends of the Rubicon saved the Rubicon Trail, thanks to all the thousands and thousands and thousands of volunteer hours. They made it happen. Dell Albright and his crew saved the trail. Friends of the Rubicon Trail Foundation, and now, there's people from around the world that come and use the Rubicon Trail every year.
Yeah, and one thing about the Rubicon that is super unique that I think I've learned over the past couple of years is that Rubicon is an RS-2477 route. RS-2477 is revised statute 2477, enacted in 1866, and that was to encourage settlement of the Western U.S., because at that point, the Western U.S. looked nothing like it does right now, and they wanted people to basically go out and build their own highways and roads into places and start settling the West. And so it's documented, I think, in a newspaper and other documentation from the counties back in the late 1800s, calling out the Rubicon Trail as an RS-2477 route. And that makes it incredibly unique because it's an RS-2477 route. It's not something that like a county normally can just close it like you can like a normal county road. And there's a lot of special stuff around that. And so it's really important that it maintains that stature as well, because it does make it very unique. And I think that's another reason why it's still open today as well, is it isn't something that they can just treat like, like you're driving down a city street and that's a county road or that's a city road.
Right.
And
right.
It's a way different jurisdiction in the way it's treated. And I think the Mining Act, I don't want to misspeak on exactly how the RS-2477, I want to say it might have been part of a mining act in the 1800s as well. And then I know that they kind of stopped allowing people to kind of make their own roads in the 70s. I think there was like the Federal Land Policy Act in 76. Basically, you can no longer, like, I can't go out there and carve a new road. But I'm pretty sure up until the 70s, people were going out and cutting new roads as under RS-2477.
Wow, that would be cool.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Let's just cut. I just need a road from here to there. Let's just cut our own new road.
Think about all the modern Jeep trails. I mean, most of them precede our time. You know what I mean? As far as like, there's very few Jeep trails that have been built in the last 50 years. When you think about it, the most I can think of is Slick Rock up in Highway 4 in Stanislaus National Forest, where they had to reroute the trail. And that's the first thing I've heard of in California, where instead of closing trails, they actually expanded. And that is like incredibly unique. And I mean, as long as I've been alive, I think all they've done is close more trails. And so it'd be nice to see more trails getting opened over time. But yeah, so anyways, I'll get back to the list. So yeah, we do a lot of stuff with education, and we spend money on education. There are things like there was that county resolution that went out in December that we did work on, and we came to a conclusion that basically was able to keep the statutes from the 2012 easement document. That's, I think it's like 2013-015. I mean, this gets like deep into the weeds, but basically there's a certain criteria that you have to meet at locations on the trail to close it. That's really based on hydrology. What they really did with this new resolution is they basically added a couple, the ability to add emergency closures for like a forest fire or like severe weather. And the wording there was changed from kind of like 90 days closures to 7-day closures that must be reenacted every 7 days. So I think that was a big win. Our president, Ken, was like the one heading that with John Arns on our group. And those guys know like every detail of that way better than I do. But I kind of know like the layman's terms is basically we were able to, let them work with us to help get to a point where the trail wouldn't just get closed. Let's just say there's a fire tomorrow on the Rubicon. They can't just close it for 3 months straight. They have to reclose it every 7 days. And I think that's really important because the snow year we had prompted them to do this. This was a historical snow year. There's always going to be unprecedented stuff. And I think keeping the language in some of these resolutions to a point where it sets us up for future success. Because what if we have the worst snow year in 300 years next year, and there's snow on the Rubicon until July? I mean, like or August or September, something crazy that we've never seen before. You kind of want to have a little bit of future proofing into some of these resolutions, so they can't just close the trail indefinitely for like no reason.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons. And I wish I was more involved with that process. I've been so focused on Cantina this year. I mean, it's been crazy that I'm in the board meetings. We talk about this stuff. I'm aware of what's going on. I understand the high level impact, and I understand like why it's important that we do what we do. You know, I think the closest thing, not everyone's going to agree with RTF and what they do, but I think the closest thing that I could think of that's like some sort of representation of regular wheelers who aren't like part of a company is like the RTF. Because who else is out there that's trying to fight? Like, who has the time to watch every El Dorado County Board of Supervisors meeting and read the notes and see if they talk about the Rubicon? Or like, who has the time to make sure that, you know, whatever, like all these different entities are doing what they're supposed to be doing? Or who has the time to say, hey, we will help you? To all 5 of these entities that manage the trail, we are always saying we have people and we have money and we would love to help you. We would, anything you need on the Rubicon. And you know, it's like the regular person doesn't have the bandwidth. We're all working 9 to 5, usually Monday through Friday. You get off work, you want to go wheel for the weekend. You don't want to think about all this stuff. It's good to know that there's at least someone out there. Maybe it's not the decision you wanted, you know, for like there's a million people out there with probably a million different dimensions on how they, you know, grade their criteria for what's a successful Rubicon trail. But I think the majority are happy that it's still open. And I think people like, you know, the FOTR and RTF are one of the reasons that it continues to fight to keep it open. I think the county actually does a really good job of keeping it open too. And the amount of time and money that the county puts into that trail is amazing. So I have a lot of respect for them doing that. And we do classes on ham radios. We have like regular stuff that we have to maintain. There's like service fees. If you charge your card at Cantina to buy a shirt, we pay a service fee on the square readers. We do have some operational costs because we do have like a website. There's like a monthly fee, I think, or yearly fee. We have postage. When you buy stuff on the website, we have to ship it out. We actually eat the shipping. Professional services, if we need like a legal consultant, sometimes that's donated, sometimes we pay for it. There's sales tax. So if we sell something in California, we have to pay sales tax. We do buy
sales tax.
I know, but the most common question I get asked, like, what do we spend money on? We do events, and the events cost a lot of money. I mean, Cantina, to put it on, we do spend money because we're buying the t-shirts that we're trying to sell at the event. We're buying the raffle tickets. I mean, we're buying the ice. We're buying the food. The food's very expensive, especially with the inflation we've seen. We had a meeting on that recently, or 2 months ago, and like food costs have gone up like crazy. Like the taco cost to run the kitchen's like incredibly expensive. You'd be surprised. I don't want to give specifics because I have to look at the updated figures. There's like software. We don't really do much advertising, but we do have a social media presence. We do a little bit here and there. Usually it's for Cantina. We spend like a tiny fraction of money on the Facebook ads to make sure that we get Cantina out there. And that's like the bulk of what we spend our money. But I think the top 3 things are like FOTR work projects, mid-trail staff, and education. I mean, part of our mission statement really is to make sure that we educate the future generations. I mean, that's kind of implied in there. And
well, so, and you maintain the kiosk right at the entrance of the Rubicon Trail. When you go on Loon Lake side, there's a kiosk there, and that's and generally speaking, on weekends, there's almost, especially this time of the year, there's somebody there, a host comes on out, reach you, have any questions you have, gives you a wag bag. I mean, there's so much that the RTF does as part of that program to make sure that you're going into the Rubicon Trail and you're welcomed, and you're also given kind of a little bit of guidance as to what to do and not to do.
Yeah, the mid trail staff that we have, I'm trying to think. I don't know if we still. I got to talk to Ken about that.
Do you still have somebody out there?
Well, we have our mid trail staff, and he does come up. But I think the folks at the trailhead are either Forest Service or county now.
Really? Okay.
I want to say that used to be RTF. You know, and like I said, I've only been around the 3 years, and everything was weird with COVID. When I came on, things were closed down, and it was crazy as far as trying to do anything because we weren't allowed to meet in groups, which is, oh man. Anyways, So let me check on that, because I want to say we used to have a part in that, and I think now that's county, because like they'll give you like the little bag with the spill kit, and I'm pretty sure the county buys like the BioCleanse and those spill kits. I think I would love to help pay for those. I mean, anything that the county needs, I think I would love to see, like if we can help cut a check or send 200 volunteers out to whatever they want, whether it's Placer County, El Dorado County, El Dorado National Forest.
So tell people what a spill kit is, because many of our guys know, but many of our guys they're driving new rigs. Like, we don't ever spill. What are you talking about? What's a spill kit?
You you crack a transfer case, or you lose a differential drain plug, or you crack a diff cover, or you hit an oil pan, you happen to get some contaminants on the trail. They come with a absorbent oil pad that I've been using those for years in my garage for catching oil. They're like super absorbent. They'll soak up oil if you leave them down for a while. They come with this thing called BioCleanse that I don't know the whole story behind BioCleanse, other than that stuff works amazing. It's got some natural enzymes that help eat the oil. So if you do have the unfortunate situation where you break something that dumps oil on the trail, use the BioCleanse, use the oil absorbent pads. And then I think there's some gloves in there. And then I think it comes in a Ziploc bag that you would use to dump that stuff back in to kind of dispose of it properly. And I think that the whole point of that is, keeping contaminants out of the waterways. I think that's the biggest thing. In the winter, you get all the snow, and then that turns into runoff, and the less contaminants that run off, the better. So I don't know if I've ever personally had to use a spill kit, other than when we do like cleanup days, and we'll go out there and walk around and spray BioCleanse on stuff and put oil absorbent pads down. I've seen other groups do that, and people go out there and they'll do cleanup days where they just go clean up oil spills, and it does happen. And we sell some of that stuff too. So if you ever go to the trailhead and that guy's not there at the trailhead giving out the free sample versions, you can buy them from our website too.
Well, and it's important to note, the whole idea is we are all responsible stewards of the trail. If you're a user of the trail, you're a steward of the trail. If you're a user of the trail, you have a responsibility. I don't care what trail it is. I don't care if you're out in Moab or you're using Ford Ice, or when you go on a trail, the responsible wheeler will take the time to take care of the trail. And it probably isn't a time that I've wheeled where I haven't grabbed more trash to come out. Somebody leaves a bottle on the side. There's a bottle cap. There's something, a bag, or maybe something just falls off of a Jeep and they realize it. And it's not a blatant, throwing something away. You grab it, you throw in your wag bag. You take more stuff off the trail than you bring on, and you never leave anything behind. You don't leave trash behind. You don't leave parts behind. There's plenty of times you go through and go, there's part of somebody's bumper that broke and they just left it laying right there, or a license plate, or, something else. It's just not cool. I mean, the whole idea about these trails, we're keeping it for generations, not just for us to use right now, not just for our momentary fun. It's for future generations, which means you've got to take the time to keep it clean and to take care of things and not put white flowers, and make sure that when you use the bathroom, you're not an idiot. Keep the poop in the toilet, not on the wall.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. That's the amazing part. I don't even know how it gets on the walls, but someone's got to clean that, and it's someone at the county, and it's Brian, and it's not fair for that guy who has to drive through and do that. And be respectful of that stuff. And trust me, it's not easy to build a bathroom in the middle of the Rubicon. I mean, the guys that volunteer to do that stuff, they're awesome, amazing people. The people that are willing to go out there and take time out of their week or their month and just literally wheel in a trailer a bunch of bathroom materials. I mean, the amount of work that goes into getting a bathroom on the Rubicon is not an easy task.
Dude, so the amount of work it took to put the bridge at Ellis, I mean, that was millions of dollars, and it wasn't just because the bridge cost a lot. It's because you had helicopters and all kinds of stuff to put something like that in there. So when you go on the Rubicon Trail, recognize that the Rubicon is a continuously updated, continuously monitored trail that has thousands and thousands of man hours every year that go into it, right? Not to mention tens of thousands of dollars that go into it, but and that's even from every little section. There's a bunch of sections of the trail, if you don't know, listeners, that are sponsored generally by clubs or by groups, or like MetalCloak sponsors a section of the trail. And when we call sponsor, all we're doing is we're donating money to a club that goes out there and does things for it. What do? Well, every section of the trail, they have abatements, they have things to help with water runoff, to clean up, to make sure that the trail itself is maintained, to make sure that the trail itself is not just allowed to go back to nature, right? Or that you don't have too much sedimentary runoff, or you don't have too much problems, or you don't have spills. So we're constantly maintaining those sections of the trail so that you and your friends and future generations can come use the trail and not even worry about it.
Yeah, that's a cool thing that the county does. They partner with adopt trail groups. They've broken the trail into all these chunks, and I think the process. I'm not 100% on that process, but I know that you have to submit a report, I think, to the county, and then they'll come back to you and say, because the goal, like you were just saying, is like, yeah, we need to make sure that the water runoff goes the right way, because that's like a big deal, and that could have huge impacts on the trail and how the trail looks next year. Because if we don't do it right, water might run down the middle of the trail and wash it out instead of running off to the side and like off the water bars. And also making sure people don't drive off trail.
Well, have you been on the trail yet this year?
No, I've been having so many issues. I've had all kinds of health issues on top of having daily migraines that prevent me from driving most days lately.
Man.
I also had like a toe surgery last Saturday. So like I can barely walk right now.
But you're just a mess. What the hell? You're young. What are you doing?
I originally had some work planned out there this coming weekend, and when the crazy storms hit, we canceled it back in March or April, because at that point we realized there's no way we could safely get out there. I know that Shannon Shard from Friends of the Rubicon is working with a lot of different groups on doing a lot of work out there this year with FOTR, which is great. I'm excited about that stuff. I'm hoping that I eventually get whatever the heck's going on with my head figured out, and I can start going out on some of these work days and some of these trail runs.
You and Mike Upchurch need to get together. Mike here, he had migraines all the time. Like,
really?
Oh yeah.
Does he get them like every day?
They can be, when he gets them, they come in waves. So if he gets one, it's there for a while, like a few days, and then before it goes away. Yeah.
That's what's happening. And then and then it's like, I'll get like one good day, and then I have a migraine again for like 3 days. And it just started 2 months ago out of nowhere. So I'm trying to figure that out. And it's been all my plans. I had all these wheeling trip plans, including this last weekend, and I've been canceling them all like left and right. I'm still planning on being at Cantina and just taking migraine medicine.
So now the Rubicon is completely open, right? You can go all the way through now, or what's the status?
I try to say,
I heard there was a snow berm on the Tahoe side that maybe you can go all the way to Outlook and back, but you can't get out Tahoe side, but I'm not sure how accurate that is now.
I've seen guys, I think as of like Friday, I saw people reporting that built rigs on like 40s were still struggling to get to, I think, even observation. I mean, they were getting to like Miller Lake and working it really hard and turning around, but I think that might have been a week or two ago. It's hard to say, because I know that from the loon side, people are at least getting to buck, and there's a lot of snow still in patches. But from the pictures I've seen, the trail is surprisingly dry. From like this weekend, I did have a lot of friends out there. They were camping at buck this weekend, and it seemed like, from the pictures I saw hardly any snow up until buck. I would be prepared for snow if I was going, but I don't think the Tahoe sides, I don't think anyone's broken through yet. I don't want to misspeak. Of course, I'll say that right now, watch, and then someone will post to Facebook on the Rubicon Trail Facebook today and say, hey, we broke through from Tahoe to Springs this morning. But as far as I know, I've been trying to stay on top of it. I haven't seen anyone get through yet.
Yeah, it's interesting to see them. I was expecting it to be a lot wetter. I was expecting it to be flooded all the way through with the amount of without a snow runoff. Even the Springs itself, a few years ago, we had not as much snow as we had this year, and the Springs were flooded up to, the bar itself was flooded out.
Yes.
So I'm just surprised that there's not that much water out there.
A lot of the stuff that I've seen this year is super dry. I did try to squeeze in a one-night camping trip up near Fordyce like a couple weeks ago, and I thought we were going to hit a ton of snow and just deep water holes. And there was like the area we were at, I saw almost no snow. And I just thought, holy moly, this is 5,500 feet, maybe 6,000 feet. And there's just no, and it looked dry. And I was just thought, man, after this record snow year, I thought we'd be in a lot worse trouble than we are as far as getting out there. So I think things are better, but I know I've seen tons of pictures of any trail above like 7,000 feet, you're not getting to it right now.
Wow.
Like Slick Rock, I saw pictures. It's still, I think, impassable as far as getting to the trail. There's still like multiple feet of snow on the ground up Highway 4 as you get higher and higher in elevation. So I know that all the high elevation trails that are above 7, 8, 9,000 feet and above, those probably won't open till August. I think there's enough built rigs going through Rubicon and posting up on social media that someone's going to break through in the next 2 weeks. I think more than likely, probably sometime. I would imagine someone will break through, maybe even July 4th weekend when we're up there at Cantina.
Well, speaking of Cantina, so I know you have limited time, and let's focus on selling Cantina. So tons of raffle prizes. Go through some of the prizes and some of the stuff that people are going to get, and just be clear. Like, do you have to be present to win, or do you just go and buy raffle tickets and you can leave?
Got to be present to win. We did scale back Cantina a couple of years ago when we hadn't had it in 3 years, and so one of the ways to scale it back and make it more manageable for our crew now as we get acclimated is like a one-day raffle, no online tickets. The other reason for one day in-person raffle too is like if there's a grand prize and someone has to be there to win it. That way, when you have 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever amount of people that are going to be there this year, we had a lot last year. You don't have some person from out of state winning the top 2 prizes, or some people, I think that's a huge bummer. When I go to raffles, I definitely get bummed out if you're like, oh man, I never had a chance because so many people that weren't even here bought tickets. But it's also a fundraiser and we want to raise the most money. There's also logistics with an online raffle that we just don't have the manpower at the moment to like ship. Let's just say 200 prizes had to get shipped out, and some of them are like winches and winch bumpers, and we don't it might take us the rest of the year for the board to ship that stuff out, and the logistics of planning that are just, it's something that we want to look into for future years and maybe possibly bring that back, but we just need to get way more volunteers and way more time, and we're all working our jobs and trying to make this all happen. It's like, I'm
sorry, you have a life? What are you talking about?
I know. I'm like, but I'm not going to be sitting there shipping out like 5 winches.
Sure. So you have to be present to win. So let's go through them stuff that you have there.
Dude, the list is amazing. So you guys are donating a lot of stuff. I'm stoked. So we're going to have a door prize there that's like part of our door prize program with you guys, where there's going to be that rad silver coin that you guys do. It's like real silver, and then
that's just for showing up.
That's the online prize, right?
Yeah, that's that. Well, we have the online prize, the pre-prize. Right, we have the pre-prize, which is the fire pit, which you can win. Right. You can enter right now. You don't have to go to Cantina to do that. You just go check out Rubicon Trail Foundation's Facebook page, and I think you guys have the QR code posted there someplace.
We do,
and you can enter to win that. That's just a support the Cantina kind of pre-prize. And then we have door prize, and the door prizes are just like for showing up. Like, that's just for being there. You don't have to buy anything. You just show up there and scan the QR code, and you could win that. If you show up, get some tacos, you could win that. Now, that doesn't help when fundraising, because the fundraising, obviously, from buying tacos comes from buying raffle tickets.
Here's the good stuff.
You buy the raffle tickets, you get the good stuff.
Here's the good stuff. So we got a full set of control arms for TJ, JK, JL from MetalCloak from you guys. 2 full sets of Rock Sport shocks for TJ, JK, JL, JT, Ram. 2 sets of the DuraSpring bumps, I believe, right, for TJ, JK, JL, JT. And then MetalCloak silver coins as well, 2 of those. That's where I was looking at the silver coin. Okay, so that was part of the regular raffle. And now we dig into some of the other vendors. So Rough Stuff is donating one of their 9-inch axle housings and a couple diff covers. Rage Forth, which is like Jason Shear's company, they're donating a bumper that's valued at like $1,500, I think, is what they were telling me is valued at. Let me see. Power Tank sent us all kinds of cool stuff, like a bunch of like high percentage off gift certs, and then some cool like tire patch kit stuff, like 40% off Power Tanks. We got Wild Horses donated like gift certificates, some Bronco shock ramp guards, Bronco headlights, some off-road lights, and
Mitch did an amazing video, and you sent that to us like a video challenge. Like, I don't have time to do a cool video like that, but he did an amazing fun video. Yeah,
I was so impressed. I was like, oh my god, dude, this is like, you guys did a great job. I mean, because I've been asking vendors like, hey, if you guys want, like, let's post a video of what you're donating so people could see what's going to be at the raffle, because we have more than $22,000 in prizes. We got Loki Thor, which they make like batteries and water pumps and air compressors that are battery powered. They're donating a compressor, water pump, battery jump starter thing, and another jump starter. Got some welders out there. Mark Dilbeck from All Around Sounds donating some like $700 like off-road like speaker can setups. We got Rubicon. I believe it's God, what's the name of this? Oh, well, I'll go to Morphlate next. We got Morphlate. They always donate a lot of cool stuff. We got Axial. They're donating like 4 RC trucks to the raffle. Those are, I don't know, they're like $400 to $500 each.
Easy.
Yeah, Warn did an epic recovery kit. They're not going to be there. I talked with their local rep. They wish they could be there. He's going to be on vacation that week. They'll probably be there next year. 4-Wheel Parts did 3 winches, a camping chair with the cooler built in, a base camp fridge with a battery, and then like 5 recovery ropes.
I just got to say it. This is called a fire sale for 4-Wheel Parts. They just got to get rid of parts right now. You see, Santa Rosa store is closing. The Santa Rosa store, one of the oldest stores around in 4-Wheel Parts, is closing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, just announced it. It's they're having a clearance sale, closing the store sale. That's too bad. 4-Wheel Parts is kind of going away of the dodo bird.
I hope not. Damn, I hope not. That's bad news. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh man, I'll reach out and see what's going on there. Yeah, because we work with the Reno store specifically.
Yeah,
they're located in like South Reno, and they're always like super supportive. I know they're. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Well, the problem is the new corporate overseers at Wheel Pros has been decimating everything, right? So there's that. Yeah, you can go back and watch or listen to episode. I forget the episode number, but do a search for what is it? The closing of Rubicon Express.
Like the death of Rubicon Express.
That's right. The death. I should know. I wrote that damn title. The death of Rubicon Express. Listen to that episode, one of our most popular episodes, because it does break down what's happening with Wheel Pros and all these Transamerica brands. But as these 4-Wheel Parts stores start closing down because they're just not getting the support, and they just don't have the whole network they used to. It's just not part of the game for whatever reason. Anyway, I interrupt you. Keep going.
Fun. Okay, International Harvest of Parts of America. They're in Grass Valley. They're doing all kinds of cool Scout parts. Some of these are universal, like Bilstein shocks and shock towers, steering stabilizer kit, mirrors, shackles, hats, some other. I mean, the list goes on. They're doing all kinds of stuff. Off-road warehouse out of Reno. A bunch of gift certs, like high value gift certs, swag kits, Yeti prize packages, and rigid light kits. And I think the manager there said that they might donate more. He's looking into that, but that's what they've sent me so far. We got Legacy Welders there. They do trail welders. We got Bund Welder. They do trail welders too. They're both slightly different welders. They're all like local, like those guys are those companies are both mom and pops type of companies too.
Cool.
Garage doing a bunch of like a Morphlate system plus some hourly gift cards, because that guy Aaron does. He runs a shop out in Sacramento, so he's doing like a bunch of gear and some labor gift cards, and then some straight up labor gift cards, and then Stellar Fab. They're out of Sac as well, and their list is like all kinds of cool gear wrench stuff, some air compressors, some Ironman 4x4 stuff, some Warren stuff. They sent me a huge list. We just got their video posted up. I mean, I'm looking at our spreadsheet right now. We're at like almost 23,000 in prizes, and that's how we raise money. Tickets are $5 each. If you spend $20, so if you buy 4 tickets, we give you a free ticket for the main raffle. And if you spend $60, 4-Wheel Parts donated another prize, which is like $1,000 Smittybilt fridge with the battery in it. And shoot. This was like a little bonus that we kind of worked out, where it's like, hey, for the people who want to spend extra, it's a separate raffle. So it's just for that one item. But if you spend like $60, I kind of stole this from another fundraiser that I went to recently, where they were doing these level tiers in the raffle, and I thought it was super cool to kind of promote people like basically donating more to the fundraiser, because it really is like a donation for us to us. And so if you spend that $60, for every $60 you spend, you might win that fridge, and that's kind of cool too. And so those are the tiers, but for the most part, it's $5 a ticket. If you spend $100, you'll get 5 free tickets, and then you get like one of those cooler separate raffle tickets and a bunch of the main raffle tickets. The raffle is at 2:30. We have the Hot Metal Fab Cornhole Tournament from 1 to 2. The Cornhole Tournament actually is going to be going all day from like 10 to 2. and some of the earlier sub tournaments or tiers or whatever you want to call it, brackets, are going to feed into the people who are going to be in the final tournament. Hot Metal Fab is making some like custom trophies for Cantina for first, second, third place. And then we have Linex of Ranchos donating the cornhole boards, and they're like legitimate tournament style cornhole boards from like a local cornhole tournament company. I actually don't know a lot about cornhole, and I didn't know that there was tournament style cornhole. So that kind of blew my mind.
Dude, when Cantina or when COVID hit and the lockdowns, and all of a sudden sports was like nothing on TV. I'm in the pizza place looking up at the TV, and there are these guys. They were in a basketball arena. Right. There's like no audience except for the teams. And they were doing cornhole. And it's like this huge throws across the arena. I mean, these are professional cornhole. And I had no idea that cornhole gone professional, but they're lobbing this thing. You know, I don't even know how far a basketball court is. I should know these things, but I don't. Maybe 50, 60 yards are throwing that. It was incredible. So okay, so we got a lot of great prizes. Let
me get one more vendor in there because I don't want to forget about
him.
Rich from Rubicon Parts. He's donating his Z steps. They're like these little actuated steps that kind of tuck up into your frame rail and they come down. So you know, if your rig's super tall and you're getting your wife or your kids in there, these little steps come down when you open your door. And then we actually have some fairway vendors selling like jewels, custom towels, custom pictures, some gems, and some other because
a little bit for everybody.
I wanted to have like that fair feel there where it's like there's tons of vendors coming, there's tons of vendor booths, but also have something to do that's not just off-road. So we actually have a nice little line out there of stuff that's like not just four-wheeling, off-roading. It's like cool stuff that like if you want to buy some postcards that have pictures of the Rubicon on them or buy some towels or something like that, we have that too. And that way there's something for people who maybe you bring a friend or a family member who's not super stoked on wheeling, but they're coming with you for the day, and they can go buy some stuff that's not like four-wheeling related.
That's cool because that's awesome. I've always encouraged, like even when we got here, we do the NorCal rock racing, we do all that. I've always encouraged John in the past to try to get those kind of vendors because, you know, there are people that want to come out and are totally into like looking at the tires and looking at the wheels and looking at all that kind of stuff. Some people just want to say, hey, look, I can buy, I can get a little necklace or I can get a souvenir, you know, and that's cool. And then, of course, you guys will be selling your shirts and that's awesome.
We got the shirt designs. I should post those. I should get our social media guy to post.
You should.
We had Shannon Chard from Friends of the Rubicon make us a Brad shirt design. It's got a Wagoneer with the Sasquatch driving it, holding the taco. That was the best idea I could come up with, and no one else had an idea, so I guess it won by default.
Winner. And there's live music too, right?
Yeah, there's live bands.
Is Ken's band playing?
I believe so. I think he had two bands playing. I think it's just one now. I have to figure that out. But yeah, we have live bands playing all day. There's going to be a bar, so we're selling like there's going to be cocktails and beers. We're gonna have tacos, nachos. We're going to be selling merchandise.
It's fun. I plan on coming out. I don't even know. I hope my guys have hooked this up, but I had already planned on taking my kids out camping, and I couldn't do it on the weekend. I was like, oh, well, let's do it this weekend. I was like, oh, that's Cantina weekend, so it's going to be, you know, we'll bring out the kids, my boys, and I will go out there camp Friday night and hang out Saturday. So, and it's been a few years since I've been to Cantina, so it'll be fun to be out there again.
It's such a cool location. The other thing too is we're doing vendor bingo. We're the first 1,000 people that show up, which we don't. I mean, I will run out at some point. I don't know if it'll be early in the day or late in the day, but we're handing out these free, like really nice bingo sheets that have every vendor's logo and like a bingo card set up. You got to black it out. So you got to do vendor blackout bingo. Go to every vendor booth and get a stamp. And when you come through the ticket line again, we'll give you like a free raffle ticket for doing that. So you don't even have to spend money. I mean, we'd like you to support us, but I think the other thing is like, we want to make sure that the vendors get their exposure.
Well, I'm going to make sure my guys know that if you come by to get a stamp from MetalCloak, you got to do something for it. Like you can't just walk up and go, stamp me, please. You got to do something. You're going to have to sing. Maybe you have to dance. Maybe you have to, you know, spin around. I don't know. Something. You got to earn the stamp.
Well, so that was something too. We thought, well, you know, if you're bringing like your kids up and like you're stoked on all the Jeep stuff, but maybe your kids want something to do. So the vendor bingo could be great for that. Axial is actually putting together an RC crawler course.
Oh, awesome. Kids. Good. They love that.
There's going to be like little competitions all day or just free play where kids can go literally play with crawlers all day. And I think that's going to be really fun too for them.
Great. That'll touch. We're all find my kids all day. They will not
Yeah.
leave there. They will stay there all day. I have an office I just built. We just basically turned our guest room into an office. Thank God, finally, the thing I wanted when we first moved into the house. But the kiddos have now turned the floor of that into their RC, and they're tearing apart their RC cars, rebuilding RC cars. I'm seeing tires swap to other things. I mean, it's awesome. But yeah, they love that stuff. Well, cool, man. Well, I know you've got a schedule to keep.
Yep.
I've already been here longer than you needed to be.
No, it's
but
great. Thanks for having me.
But Cantina, July 1st, out there at Rob's Resort. You can find it. RubiconTrail.org is directly to the Rubicon Trail Foundation. And you can see all the information about the event there. Obviously, you can find them on Facebook, at Rubicon Trail Foundation. Follow all this stuff. You keep seeing videos of me pop up because John has a whole larceny of videos that he took of me.
There's like 40 on there. I have like 40 videos uploaded to our Google Drive to post. I don't know if they're all going to get posted between now and then. Some of them might get posted after.
But it pops up. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I said that. Wait, done.
I should have texted you or messaged you or emailed you a heads up, like, by the way, it's posted tomorrow.
There's another one posting tomorrow. There's another one posting tomorrow. So guys, check it out. Make sure you're out there. Cantina for the Con. If you're anywhere in Northern California, Reno, Nevada, this whole region, it's worth it coming out. It really is worth coming out and being a part of this special event. It's a rare opportunity to have in this area. It's a rare opportunity to have vendors together anyway, because we don't have an expo up here. We don't have a big vendor event. This is it. Between Sierra Trek, Cantina, these are the greatest gatherings of vendors you're going to have in this region. So come on out, check out the vendors, come by, say hi, and eat tacos, man. I mean, you can't go wrong with tacos and Jeeps. Or tacos and tacos and 4x4s, because we have a whole litany. I mean, the Bronco guys, it is there's so much more to the community than just Jeeps anymore. All right. Well, hey, John, thank you for joining me. I'll let you get back to work. To all of you out there, again, you reach me, Matson@MetalCloak.com. If you just want to email Corey and Jessy and say, where the heck are you? Email Corey at MetalCloak.com and Jessy at MetalCloak.com. Otherwise, John, how can they reach out to you?
Go ahead and email me at Jon.Larson, LARSON, at RubiconTrailFoundation.org. And yeah, I mean, we're always looking for vendors, raffle donations, volunteers for work days. If you just have general questions, I mean, posting on our social media is probably the best way to get questions answered. But if you have something specific for like a fundraiser or education topic, or if you want to work with us on like one of these, like Cantina or something, or Off the Rocks in October, hit me up.
That sounds good. All right, my friends, we'll see you on the trails. You know how to get a hold of us. Ciao.
Thanks.